Hey there, and welcome back to Color and Craft Haven, a little corner of calm where we can slow down, breathe, and add a little color to the day. Today we're settling into something that seems simple at first, but quietly shapes everything you create. We're talking about paper. Not the flashy tools, not the expensive supplies, just the surface beneath your hands. Copy paper, cardstock, watercolor paper, and all those specialty papers that call you from the craft aisles and online shops. If you've ever wondered why something didn't turn out quite right, or why a project suddenly felt easier and more satisfying, there's a good chance the answer was paper all along. There's something comforting about paper, isn't there? The texture, the sound, the way it holds color or resists it. It's one of those materials that feels almost invisible when it works well, and incredibly noticeable when it doesn't. And I think a lot of us, especially when we're just starting out or just crafting casually, tend to grab whatever's closest. Printed paper, a leftover pad, something tucked in a drawer. Sometimes that works, but sometimes it quietly fights against you. So today we're going to walk through the main types of paper you're likely to use, what they're actually designed for, and how they behave in real life. Not in a technical, intimidating way, but in a grounded, cozy, what will this feel like at your desk on a quiet afternoon quiet kind of way. Let's start with copy paper, because it's probably the most familiar. This is your everyday printer paper. It's lightweight, usually around 20 pounds or 75 to 90 grams per square meter, which is a measurement they use for paper. This stuff is smooth to the touch and easy to find. It's affordable, accessible, and honestly, it has its place. Copy paper is great for sketching out ideas. It's perfect for testing color combinations, practicing strokes, or just letting your hand move without pressure. If you're someone who likes to doodle while watching something cozy, or you just want to warm up creatively without committing to anything, copy paper is your friend. But here's where it gets tricky. Copy paper doesn't hold up well under stress. And by stress, I mean layers and moisture or even heavy pigment. If you're using alcohol markers, you'll notice bleeding almost immediately. Colored pencils can feel scratchy because there isn't much tooth to grip the pigment. Gel pens can sometimes skip or pool. And anything involving water, well, copy paper tends to warp, wrinkle, and lose its structure pretty quickly. That doesn't make it bad. It just means it has a purpose. Think of copy paper as your low-pressure space. It's where ideas begin, but not necessarily where they finish. Now let's move into cardstock, which is often the next step up, the next thing we reach for when copy paper isn't working. Cardstock is thicker, sturdier, and feels more substantial in your hands. It usually ranges from about 65 pounds to 110 pounds, and you can feel that difference immediately. It holds its shape, resists bending, and gives your work a bit more presence. Cardstock is wonderful for coloring with markers, especially alcohol markers, because it can handle more saturation without falling apart. It's also great for layering, cutting, and assembling. If you're making cards, tags, bookmarks, or anything structural, cardstock gives you that reliability. There's something really satisfying about working on cardstock. It feels like your project matters a little bit more, like it's becoming something tangible, not just practice. And for a lot of cozy creatives, that shift from casual doodling to something you might keep or gift is where cardstock really shines. But even cardstock has its limits. While it's stronger than copy paper, it's still not designed for heavy water use. If you try watercolor techniques on it, you'll likely see buckling or uneven absorption. It can also vary a lot depending on the brand. Some are smoother, some have a bit more texture, so it's worth paying attention to how it feels under your tools. Next, we step into watercolor paper, and this is where things start to feel different. Watercolor paper is built for moisture. It's thicker, often 140 pounds or more, and it has texture, sometimes subtle, sometimes quite pronounced, and that texture is called tooth. That texture is what allows it to hold water, pigment, and layering without collapsing. When you use watercolor paper, you'll notice that colors behave differently. They spread, they blend, they settle in ways that aren't possible on a lighter paper. Even if you're not someone who paints traditionally, watercolor paper can still be incredibly useful. Water-based markers, brush pens, even certain gel pens can feel smoother and more forgiving on this surface. And if you like experimenting, letting colors bleed into each other, creating soft gradients, or just enjoying that fluid, organic movement, this is where watercolor paper really comes alive. There's also something about the feel of it. It invites you to slow down. You can't rush watercolor paper the same way you might rush a quick sketch on copy paper. It asks for patience, for intention, for a different kind of attention. And for those of us drawn to cozy creativity, that can be a really beautiful shift. Of course, watercolor paper isn't always necessary. If you're just using dry media like colored pencils or fine liners, it actually might feel a little bit too textured. Your tools might catch or skip in ways that feel frustrating. So again, it's about matching the paper to the experience you want. And then we come to specialty papers, which is where things get a little bit more playful. This category is broad, but it includes things like mixed media paper, marker paper, toned paper, handmade paper, and even things like vellum or textured craft sheets. Mixed media paper is a great middle ground. It's designed to handle a bit of everything. Light washes, markers, pencils, without leaning too far in any one direction. If you're someone who likes to switch tools mid-project, or you're still figuring out what you enjoy most, mixed media paper can feel like a safe, flexible option. Marker paper, on the other hand, is specifically designed for alcohol markers. It's smooth, often slightly coated, and allows markers to blend beautifully without soaking through as aggressively as copy paper. It's thinner than you might expect, but it's engineered to control the ink in a way that feels almost effortless. Toned paper is another interesting option. Instead of starting on a white surface, you're working on something gray, tan, or even black. This changes how your colors behave and encourages you to think differently about highlights and shadows. It can feel a bit intimidating at first, but it's also incredibly rewarding once you settle into it. And then there are the more decorative or tactile options. Papers with visible fibers, subtle patterns, or unique finishes. These aren't always about performance. Sometimes they're about mood, about how a project feels in your hands or how it looks as a finished piece. So, how do you choose? I think this is where we bring it back to intention. Not in a big, overwhelming way, but in a gentle, curious way. Before you start a project, ask yourself a few simple questions. What tool am I using? Do they need a smooth surface or a textured one? Will there be water involved? Do I want something quick and low pressure or something more lasting? There isn't a single right paper. There's just the right paper for this moment, this project, and this mood. And it's okay to experiment. In fact, I'd encourage it. Try the same design on different papers and notice how it changes. Pay attention to how your hand feels, how your tools respond, how the final piece looks and holds up. These small observations build your intuition over time. One of the quiet joys of crafting is learning these subtle differences. Not in a technical, rule-heavy way, but in a lived, sensory way. You start to recognize what works for you, what feels good, what supports the kind of creativity you're drawn to. And in a cozy, slow-living kind of space, that matters more than perfection. It's not about having the most expensive supplies or the correct setup. It's about creating an environment where you feel comfortable exploring, making, and simply being present with your work. Paper is part of that environment. It's the foundation. And when you choose it thoughtfully, even in a small way, it can change how the entire process feels. So the next time you sit down to color, to sketch, to create something small and meaningful. Take a moment to notice your paper. Feel it. Consider it. Let it be part of the experience, not just the background. Because sometimes the simplest choices are the ones that shape everything else. That's it for today's colorful time. I'd love to hear what your favorite type of paper is or what you've been enjoying using lately. Take care, stay creative, and I'll see you in the next one.